Bill, how are you?
How's it going?
I'm Nathan. It's nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you, Nathan.
All right, so tell us where we are. This is a very cool space in New York, huh?
Thanks. So a few years ago, we wanted to give MediaOcean a facelift. We created this space from scratch. 0 offices. Everyone's in cubes. I'm in the same size cube as everyone else. In fact, there's one person who has a larger cube than everyone else, and it's reception. Other than that, they're all the same size.
That's awesome. Now, as we start walking through the office, give us some context real quick. What does MediaOcean do, and what's your revenue model? How do you make money?
Sure. So MediaOcean is probably the largest and oldest AdTech company.
Okay.
We've been around this summer. Will be 50 years.
50.
50.
Holy mackerel.
Founded in 1967.
What were you advertising back in 1967?
We were doing a lot of print.
Really?
Then.
Okay.
A lot of print. But we're basically the backbone behind all the payments, the reconciliation. If you're a buyer or a planner at an ad agency, you use our systems like traders use Bloomberg.
That's great. Now, how much, I guess when you say largest, you measure media spend through the platform?
Yes.
What are you at to date so far in 2017, and what did you do last year?
Last year, we did $141 billion through our platform, and we'll eclipse that by about $5 or $6 billion this year.
He's competitive. Can you tell? All right, let me just check out the rest of the office here. So
excellent.
And you told me while we're walking, there's a funny story. You were telling me beforehand this was where you exited to Yahoo. You were in the same space, huh?
Yes. So when we sold Right Media to Yahoo, this was the hot job space, and then we moved in here. So I actually spent 3 years here, and when my assistant was looking at space, I pulled up to the building, and I said, "What floor is it on?" And she said, 6. Why? And I said, "That's where we were at Yahoo." So I walked into the space.
That is funny.
We crushed it all down and then rebuilt from scratch.
That's amazing. Okay, tell us about this space. How do you guys use this space?
So, when we wanted collaboration, because it's almost 100,000 square feet, we wanted a place where everyone was going to centralize. There'd be a lot of collaboration, a lot of information flow. So if you want coffee, there's only one place in this office you can get it. It's right here. We got some iced coffee there. We got ping pong. We got a yoga room. We do all of our all-hands meetings here.
You got the game room over here?
We have game room. We do Pilates and yoga in that game room. And all of our training is around back there.
Now, do you have all the records on all these games back here?
No, I suck. In fact, we look at, who's in top every month, and we check their performance.
That's pretty cool. Just to make sure they're not slacking?
Sure, yeah. It's like I have a thing where if you're a CEO or executive and you're good at golf, it means you're probably not that good of a CEO.
Because you can't be good at golf.
It's all about repetition. Yeah.
All right, let's check it over here. So this is, well, first off, how many employees do you have? This is a huge space.
No, it's a huge space, and actually it goes all the way down here. If you look over here, we have about 400 employees in this space.
Okay, and what's like the breakdown over here of the 400?
So this is all tech, engineering, QA product over here.
Okay.
We go into sales and account management over there. And then around the corner is all customer support, which is where I decided to sit.
Customer support, that's good.
Because you know what's going on with your products. And if you want to know what's going on with the company, the people in customer support are the chattiest. They know everything that's going on.
Yeah. Now, how many salespeople do you have?
So because we have every single major agency, our sales department is looking for some smaller agencies. It's looking for connect partners. That's ad tech companies, data companies, supply partners, convergence. So we actually only have about 7 salespeople.
Okay, and we talked to a lot of big B2B SaaS companies in the 100 million ARR range. They have a playbook for inside sales, expansion revenue, et cetera.
Yep.
Your sales team, I imagine, is probably a little different than that.
It's almost all very strategic.
High touch.
High touch.
Yeah.
Our sales, takes, anywhere from 3 to 9 months.
Wow, okay.
On average.
Yep.
So these are long sales cycles, very complex. We pull in solution engineers, we pull in product people, we pull in our account teams. So it's a team effort.
And how do you, when you're landing, you say customer, are you working directly, like you mentioned, we were talking about Kings earlier on and your golfing buddy, but you also mentioned media partners.
Yep.
So are you selling mainly to folks that are selling to other people, or are you going direct to consumer or direct to business?
So for 45 years of the company's history, ad agencies were our sole customers. In the past 5 years, we've expanded to now sell to TV broadcasters and publishers. We now sell to all the intermediaries, all the ad tech companies in the middle. That could be technology, data. And now because of convergence, suppliers, companies like Pandora is a great partner of ours. They're trying to sell to both digital buyers and radio buyers. We're the only ad tech company that is across all those media types.
Oh, interesting.
And now we're looking at TV as the next big convergence play. And most recently, through an acquisition we did We're selling direct to CMOs and brands.
What was that
direct to
acquisition?
advertising.
Who was
It's an
that?
acquisition called Coalspace. It's on the
Coalspace.
planning side of the business.
Okay.
So now we went from 5 years
Media
ago,
planning.
Media planning,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
We went from just selling to ad agencies to now selling to marketers, agencies, publishers, TV broadcasters, and all the intermediaries.
Now, as we walk, I want to check out your spaces over here, right?
Yeah,
Customer
it's
support.
messy. It's messy.
That's okay. We won't go to your desk.
Okay,
We'll
good.
go back to that blue room. But
All right.
but tell me about. So you mentioned all the major media buyers using you guys, and we were joking earlier. I'm going, how do people decide like which platform like you to use? Because there's so many of them.
Yep.
Without getting too technical, describe why people are choosing to put their money through you versus somebody else.
So at the end of it, if you're a major agency, all of our deals with the holding companies are at the holding company level and are exclusive. So from a billing, reconciliation, invoicing, all that back office stuff, those guys all have long-term contracts with us. In fact, when we were selling the company and raising debt, I had on one slide that we went to S&P and Moody's on that said our average customer contract length or average relationship length with the holding companies was 27 years.
Wow. And they go,
And they said, "Is this 2.7 years?" I said, "No, it's 27 years."
Yeah.
So these are long, outstanding contracts. Besides that, our contracts are anywhere from 1 to 3 years.
I was going to say, so when you look at your contract length, when you talk about contract value, so you talked about your total spend going through your platform. How do you make money though? Is it a percentage of?
We charge a very, very, very small.
How
percentage.
small, Bill? Come on, give me
It
below
is
what?
A fraction of 1%.
Fractional 1%.
Yes.
Okay, that's pretty low.
Yes. So we've commoditized, what we do way down. So it'd be very difficult for someone to compete with us because you would literally need to have 50 or 60 billion of spend going through the system just
To compete.
Just
Yep.
to compete, yeah.
No, we've seen all kinds of, as we interview kind of ad tech players, people taking like egregious amounts of percentage wise. So we'll talk about crypto coming up actually and a lot of the ad
Nice.
fraud stuff and maybe your thoughts on that.
Well, when you think an ad agency makes 3, 4, 5% on media spend, and then you look at DSPs making
What's DSP?
demand side platforms that agencies use for digital spend, if they're making 18, 20, 22%, you think that's going to get commoditized way
It
down.
has to.
It has to.
It has to. So you're doing. I mean, you're the ones doing that.
There's way too much AdTech tax.
Yeah.
And I think now there's a microscope. Mark Pritchard, who runs the ANA, also runs marketing for Procter & Gamble, basically came and said, for programmatic, he's seeing that AdTech tax being 75 cents on the dollar.
That's unbelievable.
That's it. Yeah.
Just to be clear, that means if you want to put $100, I'm a very simplification here, but $100 through Facebook ads, 75 bucks of that money is basically going to go towards the platform you use to put the ad in place.
Instead of the supply
actual
or the consumer.
That's crazy.
So yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, let's walk back to this blue room.
Sure.
We'll get set up back here. Okay, so Bill, so we learned a little bit about the company, but we didn't talk much kind of about your past out there. So maybe some people might call you the $5 billion man, and let me break that down, and then I want your perspective on some of this. And he's a humble guy, as you can tell, right? So you've been in the ad tech space for a long time. Most recently in 2015, Vista Equity and Robert and his crew, I believe, bought a majority stake in your company that valued the company at around $720 million.
Correct.
Tell us about that deal and why you decided to do that specifically with Vista.
Sure. So I had been running MediaOcean for about 5 years. We had gone through a merger with a company called Donovan Data Systems. That's the company that was formed in 1967.
I was wondering about that. I'm going, there's no way this guy's like 80.
Yeah. No. I would be minus 4 years.
I was going to say, there's no way that would work.
Yeah.
So this guy, it was a family business?
It was, Michael Donovan was founder, CEO, 100% equity owner of Donovan Data Systems, or DDS.
Oh, wow.
Media Bank, which I was running, was a fierce competitor. In fact, there was so much bad blood between us. When I finally met Michael to approach him about, joining forces, I took a step back because Michael is one of the greatest people I've ever met. And I took a step back and I pushed myself away from the table and said, my conscience is killing me. I was like, my kids hate you. I was like, that's how much I've demonized you.
Thanksgiving dinner table, Christmas Eve,
right.
family.
I almost put a picture on the dartboard. But we let our past be bygones and we joined forces. And then,
what did that look like actually structurally? I mean, you just come together 50-50?
It was a merger. They got a slight majority.
Okay.
We had.
You hate that. You maybe hated it back then. Maybe now it doesn't matter because you're so big. But why in the moment? Try and take us back to that moment.
DDS contributed 102% of the net assets of the deal.
Okay, so that.
And they were 5 times our size.
Okay, so you maybe got the better deal.
Maybe.
Maybe we got the better deal.
I think it was a win-win.
Okay, good.
Now the Department of Justice took a liking to us. They blocked the deal for anti-competition. We battled that for 7 months and got through. And then the hard work was, how do we actually, take these two companies that had great assets, but together create one culture. So,
and what year was this? Sorry.
So this was 5 years ago. So this was
13,
2012.
12.
Yeah.
Merger
And-
2012.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the hard work was begun, which is how do we regain trust in digital? How do we build a new digital platform from scratch? We invested $100 million of R&D over 5 years to get there. So about $21 million a year. And then, once that was established, we felt like these assets were just ripe for consolidation. And we talked about all the intermediaries.
You mean the space in general?
The space and our assets in particular. So Vista Equity was a company that called on me for literally years, because they were kind of stealth and only invest in SaaS-based B2B companies. I never called them back because I never heard of them.
Yep.
I finally met the founder. There was a little bit of a man crush within the first hour.
There was?
Yeah, 100%.
What's he like in person?
You know what? Well, there's Brian and Robert, who are the two founders.
Yep.
I met with Brian first.
Okay.
He was kind of a blue-collar kid who grew up, in Boston. I kind of felt like he was just like me.
Yep.
Everything he made himself, and was really down to earth. And I just loved the story. And more importantly, I was looking for a partner that was going to help me get to the next level. We didn't need cash because we were very profitable. We could have sold the company. We could have raised money. We could have raised debt.
You weren't bootstrapped up to that point, were you?
No.
How much had you raised before 2015 when Vista came into the picture?
So we had raised at MediaBank. We had raised around a little over $50 million.
Okay.
But Donovan, had been profitable literally every single year since 1967.
So they capitalized most of the.
So there was cash flow. We funded that $100 million investment. We funded out of operations.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, so we didn't have a cash problem.
That's great.
We had a strategy problem, which is how can we get more aggressive? And I looked at Vista and their playbook and what they've done with other similar companies in other verticals, but SaaS based. And,
You're talking Marketo, Cvent.
Yeah, those are the new ones.
Yeah.
But even
It's
before
good.
they looked at the auto industry, hospitality,
Okay.
Transportation. It's incredible what they've been able to do. And the reality is software companies are software companies. It's a different vertical. Some of the go-to-markets are a little bit different, but at the end of the day, they look and feel the same.
Yep.
So I knew they were the partner for us, and then we just started negotiating.
Negotiate the deal. Now, without getting into specifics, how do you value? You have to come up with a value, and it was reported about 720 million. They bought a majority stake, so I'm assuming they put in well over 350, 400, something like that. How do you negotiate a valuation on a company like MediaOcean?
So for us, we feel like we had a good run rate, and we had a good future. But at the end of it, we were at that point, we're a 45-year-old company,
Yep.
47-year-old company, and it was largely based on a multiple of EBITDA.
Okay.
And it was really around the negotiation was there's a range, there's a low end of the range, the high end of the range. I felt like because I was going to be continuing, I was stuck in the middle. So I let that be between Vista and our selling shareholders.
Oh, that's good. So when you say selling shareholders, the people that put 50 million into your first company, they were still on the cap table
Correct.
post merger with
Correct.
Donovan?
Correct.
Got it. So you let them be the bad guys in case you're working together
That's
with these
right.
guys afterhand. It's still good to go.
At the end of it, it really was a win-win.
So it's a multiple on EBITDA though. I mean, does it drive you crazy? I mean, you were in New York, so let's just I'll pull one out.
Listen, multiple. You can apply multiple ways. It could also be a multiple on revenue.
Yeah.
But the reality is, we were a large software company throwing off a bunch of cash. I think Vista knew that there was even opportunity to make the existing business more efficient. Put a bunch of debt onto the balance sheet. And since Vista's owned us for just about 2 years, a little over 2 years now.
Okay.
We've done 6 acquisitions.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then they're basically a credit card to help you do that if you need it, right? You're laughing, but I mean, if it's rational and it makes sense, they're a funding source.
If you want to simplify it down to that, I think they take offense to that. But
how would you describe it? I don't want Robert or these guys after me.
Value added.
There you go.
Financial.
Yeah. 1 + 1 = 3, etc. Yeah. Okay. So makes a lot of sense. Walk me through. So you mentioned the spend going through you. 140 billion last year. You'll break. I think you said 160 this year. 400 employees just in this office. Give us the high level. How many total employees in the whole company right now?
We're just under 1,000 employees.
Okay, just under 1,000.
We're in about 11 countries.
Okay.
We did 141 billion last year. We'll probably break about 150 billion this year.
Okay, and is there an aspect of the business that is software? Do clients pay a flat monthly fee to access the technology at all?
We price our deals based on a really, really, really small percentage of revenue, and
That's
that's
it.
always been our revenue model.
Okay, there's a lot of these ad tech companies that I'm talking to, and it's like maybe they're losing confidence in the percentage of spend model, so they're inventing SaaS platforms and
Sure,
totally transitioning.
sure,
Interesting.
sure.
Okay, that makes sense. You're a creative guy. We're interviewing here. I'm looking at all these crazy pictures behind you. You're a creative guy. What's the weirdest thing you've done to acquire a customer?
The weirdest thing I've done to acquire a customer. God, I'm gonna have to think that one through before I answer.
It's the one that you're going, if we just have this deal and we get it done, this is
Yeah.
big for the business.
It's funny when I was at Media Bank and we were competing against Donovan. We were trying to win IPG, which is a big holding company.
Okay.
Now we looked at Donovan, and they were kind of the older, more antiquated system. They were a little bit more stable. There was no risk in staying with Donovan. So I knew we had to have the perception needed to be that we were this young, aggressive, innovative company. So I went to all my executive team and my sales team, my CRO, my CFO, my COO, and said, "Here's the deal: we're installing a uniform, and the uniform is jeans, a button-down shirt, and a blazer."
It wasn't before that.
No, it was not before that.
What was it before?
People would wear slacks and
Yeah,
and
okay.
stuff. And in fact, when I started at MediaBank, they actually had a company policy which was no jeans. Um,
Only slacks in the.
yeah, and so I showed up my first day in jeans, and they said someone pulled me aside and said, I think it was our head of HR pulled me aside and said, "But Bill, there's a no jean policy." I was like, "Well, as CEO, that's probably the first decision I'm
I'm
going to
gonna
make." But we were negotiating
Young and
with
hip.
IPG,
IPG, I
and
love
I
that.
said we need to come in. We need to be viewed as the disruptors, and if you're not with us, you're going to be at a loss.
Yep.
And it's funny because it's one of those little things where
It matters.
it matters.
They come into the
The
office.
perception is reality, and it matters.
It does. Now, on average, what are you spending to acquire these customers? I mean, these are long value, big value kind of.
Back then at the holding company level, it literally was a year and a half sales cycle,
Mhm.
2 year implementation cycle.
Wow.
I mean, so you add it up, it's 2 to 3 years full cycle.
Yep.
Now that we've merged with Donovan, we have the big holding companies in the major markets. Now we're adding on, kind of smaller agencies, and maybe those sales cycles are 3 to 6 months. Implementation of 6 to 9 months.
I want to get a sense of, as you're scaling, I mean, you have what other people don't, which is massive scale. You're able to mess with the typical metrics of lifetime value and payback period. You have no cash issues. You're able to mess with those metrics to really get a competitive advantage when you're trying to scale. I mean,
Sure.
so you probably care less about payback period because you have no cash issues. You can afford to, I don't want to say lose money, but you can afford to not make any money on a client longer.
The thing is, when you get to our scale, the variable cost of new customers is almost immaterial. So another way I would put it, just because Vista might be watching, isn't a loss. It's the next incremental dollar is near 100% EBITDA.
There you go.
So
It's great. That's what I was
See
looking
what I
for.
did
That
there?
makes
See
good.
what I did
That was
there?
really good. He makes good sense.
financial engineering. It's financial engineering.
Last set of questions here before I move into kind of the last kind of section I want to talk about is cryptocurrencies and what it has to do with maybe ad tech specifically. As a guy like you, kind of in your head, you've had many, many exits. You've founded many, many companies. What is when somebody owns a majority of your company, your mind has to change a little bit. How does a guy like you beat away all the opportunity costs of going and starting the next big thing? I'm sure you're being recruited by other companies to run it. Why stay in a company where you don't have a majority anymore?
I mean, the amazing part about Vista is it was about a week before we're about to finalize the acquisition, and we still hadn't come to agreement on my employment.
Uh-huh.
And so in the back of my head, I kind of started thinking, I guess they don't want me. And so I kind of brought it up to them, and they said, "Oh, no, we're doing this deal around you. We want you." And I said, "Well, then
This is the first time
why didn't you, but that's how confident Vista is in themselves.
Yeah.
Because they know as we're creating value, I feel like I have become a better CEO since selling to Vista.
Yep.
There's no piece of the business that I'm not on top of now. And, they have a way, they operationalize the infrastructure, reporting, put in new processes. We were talking about hiring. Hiring
Yep.
is now a science for us. we use no external recruiters because we ask everyone to take a Wonderlic-like test. And 21% of the world's population gets an A or a B on this test. We only hire A's and B's. So now, we hire the best of the best. We have a new, strategy. There's financial engineering. We're doing acquisitions. So like, I feel like I'm using different parts of my brain now as a Vista-owned company. And frankly, I don't think I will ever not work with Vista. So that's a big endorsement for an entrepreneur.
That is pretty good. I mean, that's pretty good. What's the playbook though at Vista? I mean, there's not a. How do you personally kind of get an exit? They buy the rest of the company. You guys decide to take it public.
Well, the other part is they re-up me. So
What does that mean?
They allowed me to sell 100% of my equity on their acquisition, re-upped me.
Got
And
it.
so
You're
now
signing a new stock option agreement, basically.
Yeah, so now I'm hungry again.
So you do get an exit even when.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Got it. This is something a lot of people never talk about. I'm glad I actually brought this up. So, I mean, founders at your scale can do this all the time, which is sell portions. Maybe it's not 100%, but even just chunks of their equity.
Absolutely.
Series D, Series E, etc.
And but they're looking at how do I continually at least 3x their investment. So if you 3x from where we sold at last time. And we all participate.
It's good for everybody.
It's good for
There's
everybody.
champagne flowing. Last set of questions: crypto.
Yes.
There's a lot of waste in the ad tech space. Some
100%.
maybe put it at 7.2 billion annually.
Yep.
Does a blockchain-based ad tech platform solve these problems?
So I wrote an article, co-authored an article with the founder and CEO of IPON Web about a week ago around because people are talking about blockchain as this
new
savior. And blockchain, don't get me wrong, is a disruptive piece of technology that we haven't seen since the advent of the internet. That being said, there are things that blockchain can solve for, things that they can't. Number one, it cannot handle the level of scale that online advertising has, programmatic specifically.
You're talking about real-time bidding specifically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or even just online advertising in general.
Yep.
But if you think about things like fraud, if you think about things like kind of bad actors, just all the AdTech tax, and making sure that approved vendors are along the supply chain, that's where something that it can solve for. And that's and there's a bunch of startups in the space looking at it. Companies like MediaOcean will be looking at that, and that's just good for the industry.
Yep.
So MediaOcean, because we're kind of this neutral platform across the industry. Anything that's good for the industry is good for us. So our interests are aligned. So,
do you have personally any exposure to crypto just to keep a pulse?
Oh, so yes. So there's a bunch of different companies. There's one company, MadHive, that created a consortium called AdLedger, and I proactively went after their founder and CEO to make sure MediaOcean was part of that. NYIAX is another company that's partnered with NASDAQ. I'm actually on the board of NYIAX.
So you've got all your fingers. Yeah. Very good.
Absolutely.
All right, last question before we wrap up. Salesforce wants to get into this space. Let's say they want to go into it really aggressively.
Yep.
They come up, they have so much cash on their balance sheet, they go, Vista, Bill, here's a $5 billion check. Do you sell the company?
Tomorrow,
really?
Absolutely.
Good. That's a quick decision.
Absolutely. Well, and the other part of Salesforce, they have CRM. They have existing users through social. So it's paid, owned, and earned.
Yep.
They have owned and earned. They don't have paid.
Yep.
MediaOcean actually would be the paid.
You would see, that's a very interesting pitch, Benioff, if you're watching. It sounded pretty direct. But, I mean, Vista's kind of, I don't have any inside information, but when you look at publicly, I mean, they kind of have a hub and spoke model if you look at the past acquisitions they've done, where they could essentially buy kind of the different, I don't want to call them point solutions because they're huge billion-dollar point solutions, and staple all these things together and create their own sales force. How do you make decisions internally about how you fit in the portfolio of a Vista versus your own company?
So in terms of media and advertising, MediaOcean was one of the first investments Vista did in that vertical. Obviously, since then, they've acquired Marketo, they've acquired MarketTrack, they've done a bunch of acquisitions. They're partners of ours. I'm a partner of theirs, they're a partner of mine. They don't do a single deal in this space without consulting with me, saying, would this make sense as a standalone? Would this make sense within MediaOcean? How would it play out? So it's their investment committee. It's incredibly strategic, very holistic, and very thoughtful.
There you guys have it. Bill, I appreciate you taking time. Started over 55 years ago, and you go back to the Donovan days doing print advertising, did $140 billion in ad tech placements, ad tech spend last year will pass me by $150 billion this year. Take a fraction of a percentage point. That's how they make money, lower than anything else in the industry. 2015 did a big deal with Vista that put them at a valuation well over $720 million. He's now building into the future, but he would take a $5 billion acquisition, and Vista probably would too from Salesforce. Bill Wise, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.